everyone. Among all of the various, most of them negative things that are likely to happen with the advent of the second Trump presidency in the United States, this is one. So, without any possible checks and oversight on the part of the U.S., Russia plans to expand its misinformation campaign to not only rewrite the history of this war that they had started, but also to drive a wedge between Ukraine and its allies, particularly between Ukraine and the U.S. And here's why. Because look at the last, I want to say, 9 years since the announcement of Trump's first presidential candidacy. Look at the rise, and not only that, but also look at the absorption of misinformation. Why wouldn't they try to do that in Europe? Well, Europe is geographically closer. In Europe, among many, the memory is still fresh and alive of the Soviet Union and what was going on in a large portion of Europe back then. So they're not as easy to fool. The US, however, out here, isolated, having never had a foreign nation on its own soil. And don't give me the example of Pearl Harbor. The Japanese never actually landed on U.S. soil. They bombed it, but they never landed here. Big difference. So, U.S. people are simply more gullible. So, that is the plan. Spread lies as much as possible, undermine people's support for U.S. Aid in Ukraine, and so on and so forth. Spread the why should we care mindset. And that's coming, folks. And sadly, having seen how much that misinformation, the parroting of Russian media, has already affected U.S. public opinion, I am frankly very concerned about this. Meanwhile, multiple sources, including Financial Times, Business Insider, etc., are talking about additional advances in the game of drones. Once again, the style of modern warfare has been completely revamped and rewritten during this particular war. I think this is the first time in history of warfare that drones and guided missiles, guided bombs have been used on quite this scale. And I hope nations are taking notes. And here is something to consider. So, Ukraine obviously is at a huge disadvantage when it comes to any kind of research and development, including research and development of new weapons. Because why? Because it's fighting a war. It's really hard to do anything else when fighting a war. And any engineering undertaking, including that for military, involves planning, design, testing. All of that has to be done by somebody somewhere. So you see the problem. But other countries are not at war at this time. So they should be taking notes and doing what Ukraine cannot do, and researching and perfecting this new class of weapons. And here's another one. So despite all of its challenging and all of its various restrictions, Ukraine has been able to release a new projectile, which is a combination of missile drone called Pekla which translates to inferno. So, very warlike name. But we'll see how that goes. Frankly, I don't think they should be having big launch parties. Just start using them. Just go for it. Don't tell the enemy what all new toys you've gotten. Don't tell them anything about what you have developed. Again, don't be like Russians. Russians like the whole pomp and circumstance thing. They like to have, these big reveals and stuff like that. And usually the result is a lot worse than their reveals tend to be. So don't be like them. Just start using the new stuff. Surprise them. Putin's multi-million dollar baby, the Kerch Bridge, is not working once again because it is once again a target for Ukrainian drones. So again, folks, if you cannot imagine, what's the big deal guarding one bridge? Well, it is a very long bridge that stretches over a very long expanse of open water. Okay, it goes across a portion of the sea. So it's not like you can put some trees in place and hide it. It's there. You can't hide anything in the open sea. And so, yeah, and since this bridge is routinely used to siphon military supplies and personnel into Crimea, yeah, it is a valid military target. Another valid military target is the highway in Russia connecting the Kursk region with Moscow. And the Artesh underground group had this time carried out an act of sabotage to a matching railroad. So there is also a railroad line connecting Kursk and Moscow. And basically what they did was burn down the relay cabinet. So if you want to understand what that means when it comes to running a railroad, go look it up. Go look up how a railroad relay cabinet works. It's interesting. And so this is important. This particular group is interesting because it hasn't just been operating in one location, which suggests it's pretty massive. And I'm kind of hoping that they are keeping it loose in terms of their organization, because while it's important to have some structure, the more rigid that structure becomes for an underground movement, the easier it is to detect. So from what I've seen so far, they're doing it right, because they carry out something big and then lay low for a while. And then they appear somewhere completely different and they carry out something else. So in addition to the operations they've been carrying out on Russian territory, they have also been active inside the invaded part of Ukraine, which is a good thing. I have high hopes of them. So why that particular line? Why that particular railroad? Same reason as everything else. Same reason as the Kerch Bridge. Same reason as the highways. Because it is routinely used to supply weapons and soldiers to the war. And we're not interested in having them supplied. So what I'm hoping is, and I have no doubt they probably already have that they have a list and that they're keeping a tally of which roads, highways, air routes, land routes are being used for those purposes and are working on additional operations.